In this video, I will walk you through how instructors use iClicker Classic in their classrooms. My goal is to have you comfortable with iClicker Classic and ready to use it in your learning sessions. So let's get started. Here's an overview of what we'll cover today. I'll discuss the iClicker family of products and talk more specifically about iClicker Classic. I'll do a long live demonstration of how iClicker Classic works. Lastly, I'll discuss essential settings and show you the many resources we have to support you and your students. Let's talk quickly about what makes iClicker such a powerful teaching tool. It's simple to set up and make your lesson plans interactive. With iClicker, there's no need to feed questions and answers into a separate system. Instead, the iClicker toolbar floats on top of whatever presentation tools you're already using, saving you prep time and giving you flexibility and the freedom to deviate from your lesson plan when necessary. iClicker gives each of your students a voice, from the noisiest extrovert to the brilliant introvert, taking students from passive observation to active learning. As a result, iClicker use encourages attendance and improves focus on the learning session, leading to measurably better student learning outcomes. You're also able to provide and collect instant feedback. As you ask your students questions, you're learning about who your students are and how much they're comprehending in real time. Your students are able to test their skills and know instantly how they are progressing in the class. All of this makes it easy for you to teach in a responsive, effective manner. Lastly, iClicker's gradebook makes it easy to keep track of your students' grades, and they upload easily into your LMS. Users of Blackboard, Canvas, Moodle, Brightspace, and Sakai can download their iClicker Classic gradebooks in the formats their LMS understands. These users can also download their course roster from their LMS and upload it into iClicker, making in-class student remote registration a breeze. So far, I've highlighted features that both iClicker Classic and iClicker Cloud share. Here, I'm going to talk about the features that are unique to iClicker Classic. iClicker Classic is our response system that relies on iClicker remotes to effortlessly collect your students' votes. iClicker Classic is an especially elegant solution in classrooms where Wi-Fi is weak or non-existent. If you are teaching in a class where the Wi-Fi is strong, you also have the option to allow students to respond to polls using mobile devices through our iClicker Reef student application. iClicker Classic also makes it possible to conduct anonymous polls in your class, making discussion of sensitive topics easier to direct and control. Lastly, with iClicker Classic, you can conduct self-paced polls. This can be a creative way to conduct a quiz or to direct students working in small groups. iClicker Cloud and iClicker Classic share many similarities, though they are distinct in their own right. This chart lays out the differences between these two polling systems. With iClicker Classic, students vote primarily using iClicker remotes, while our cloud students rely on their smartphones, tablets, and laptops. However, we like to give you a lot of flexibility here. If you want to allow students to use mobile devices to respond to polling questions, all you need to do is enable Reef polling in your Classic class, which I will demonstrate for you later in this video. One of the ways iClicker Classic can be a dynamic tool in your classroom is it does not need any internet connectivity to work. Even if you're in a basement bunker of a classroom with cinder block walls, iClicker Classic will still gather your students' votes with ease. For this reason, iClicker Classic relies on local data storage, while iClicker Cloud keeps its data in, you guessed it, the cloud. Using local storage gives you complete control over your data. Attendance is the newest feature we've added to iClicker Cloud, but that feature is not available in Classic due to the need for an internet connection. With attendance, you can automate the roll-taking process in your class. Students can still use iClicker remotes to check in for attendance with iClicker Cloud. If this sounds interesting to you, and you know the Wi-Fi in your classroom is strong, you might consider using iClicker Cloud instead. Again, attendance is not an iClicker Classic feature due to the need for robust Wi-Fi. With all of our iClicker solutions, you can always ask multiple choice questions. If your students have the iClicker 2 remote, you can ask very short answer and numeric questions as well. iClicker Cloud allows instructors the widest variety of question types. You can ask multiple choice questions, questions that take a numeric response, and questions that allow your students to write a short response of up to 140 characters. You can also ask your students a targeted question. With this type of question, you show your students an image and they touch the image to indicate the correct answer. As far as question types go, multiple choice questions are still the leading type of question instructors ask, and our instructors who only use these types of questions are still creating active classrooms that teach their students in dynamic, exciting ways. If iClicker Classic is the right solution for you and your students, here's all that's required to bring it into your classroom. For you, the instructor, iClicker Classic requires a computer, the iClicker Classic desktop application, and the iClicker base. An instructor account is optional, though it makes it easier to access your class data. The blue instructor remote is an optional item that allows you to move around your classroom. It gives you the ability to start and stop polls. It can also control your PowerPoint presentation, and it comes equipped with a laser pointer, giving you the ability to teach from anywhere in your classroom. Your students will need an iClicker remote to participate in polls in your class. If you decide to enable iClicker Reef in your class, students who opt for a mobile device will need an iClicker Reef student account. And you'll also need to make sure the Wi-Fi in your classroom is robust enough to support students voting that way. At this point in the training, I sometimes have people who want to go over pricing. Depending on what you want to allow in your class, your students can purchase an iClicker Reef account, an iClicker Plus remote, an iClicker 2 remote, or our all-access package that gives students both an iClicker remote and an iClicker Reef subscription. Now I'm going to show you the iClicker Classic experience from both an instructor and student perspective. To get started with iClicker Classic, you need the iClicker base and the iClicker desktop software. Let's pop out of this presentation and onto the iClicker website so I can show you where to download the software. Point your browser to iClicker.com, then click the Downloads link at the top of the page. Once on the download page, find iClicker Classic and click the Download Options link on the right. Now select the option that's right for the type of computer you're using. Once you click on your choice, a zipped file will download. Unzip or extract the folder and save it to the destination of your choice on the computer. One important thing to note is your institution may be using a customized version of iClicker Classic. You can click here to see if your institution is using a custom version. Otherwise, these standard versions below will work just fine. I already have the software on my computer, so I'm going to click my iClicker Classic icon to get started. The first time you open the iClicker Classic software, you'll be asked to register. The registration process is very simple, asking just for your name, email address, and the primary institution where you teach. By registering your software, troubleshooting, support, and communication are more streamlined. Once you've registered, you'll come to this screen each time you open the software. You can see my iClicker base is plugged in and working here in the left corner, where you can see a green light and it says Clicker Responses Enabled. If I unplug it, you can see it changes to a yellow light and the wording changes to a prompt for me to plug in the base. Plug it back in, and the light turns back to green. You'll notice our class has another green light here that says iClicker Reef Mobile Enabled. This is because I've decided to allow students to use mobile devices in my class to respond to polls. I've already created a class, as you can see here. When you first open the software, you obviously won't have any classes, so click the Create button in the bottom left corner. You'll be prompted to name your course. Type in the name of your course and click Create. Now your course has been created and you're ready to run a session. Simply click on the class you're teaching, then click Start New Session. Now my big window turned into a small hovering toolbar that will float over any programs I use on my computer. I can ask a polling question using a PowerPoint or Keynote or Microsoft Word. Or even if I'm not projecting, I could always write a question on my whiteboard. Now all I need is a question to ask, and I've got one ready here in my PowerPoint. When I'm ready to ask a question, all I need to do is make sure that my students can see my question. I make sure that my poll is set to multiple choice, and then I click the Start button. When you first ask a question in your class, this will pop up to make sure that all of your students are on the same frequency code that your base is set to. I'll show you how to change the frequency code later when we go over settings. So here's my question. Which software or website does iClicker Classic work with? A. PowerPoint, B. Keynote, C. Google Docs, D. YouTube, or E. All of the above. To start a poll, all I need to do is go to my floating toolbar, make sure it's set to the proper type of question, and then press the Start button. Now I can see how long my question has been open, and I can see how many of my students have responded. Okay, I have a response, and that's enough for me, so I'm going to stop the poll. Next to your Stop and Start button, you'll see this little button that looks like a graph. This is the Results button. If I click it, another window pops up showing me how my students have answered. And now, to indicate the correct answer, I simply touch the correct answer in my results window. Yes, iClicker works with any software or website. Even YouTube is fair game. Let me show you another question. All I have to do is make sure that the poll is set to multiple choice and to have a question here ready to be asked. So when are iClicker Classic responses graded? Is it A, before class begins, B, before starting a polling session, C, before asking a polling question, D, after asking a polling question, or E, after final exams? I simply press the play button, and then I wait for my students to respond. Now I'm able to look at the results and grade them. Yes, the correct answer is D. Though you don't have to grade questions immediately after asking a question. In fact, I'm going to ungrade this question so you can see how to grade questions after you've ended your polling session. For pedagogical purposes, it's a best practice to make looking at the results and providing the correct answer part of the in-class polling experience. However, we're aware that there are times in your class that can't take place, so you're always able to grade your questions later, perhaps after class is concluded. Each time you ask a polling question, a screenshot is generated and saved in your gradebook. This screenshot is taken each time you press the Start button. This makes it easy to refer to past sessions, simplify grading, and help you reflect better on your lesson plan. iClicker Classic also gives you the opportunity to ask questions completely on the fly. I'm going to open up a document in Microsoft Word and simply type in a question. So here you can see this is just document 1 in Microsoft Word. Now all I need to do is make sure my floating toolbar is set to multiple and then click the Start button. Now I can grade the question by simply clicking Results. Unfortunately, we all know woodchucks cannot chuck wood. You'll see that when I touch this answer, my incorrect answer turns red. You can see how this question wasn't a part of my PowerPoint. I just used a word processing document. You can ask questions completely on the fly with iClicker, giving you the flexibility and the ability to be spontaneous and responsive. Let's get back to our PowerPoint. If you're using iClicker 2 remotes with your students, or you've enabled iClicker Reef in your class, you can ask more question types than just multiple choice. Here's an example of a fill-in-the-blank question that uses the short answer function. Just set the poll to short answer, and then press the play button. Students use the iClicker Remote's directional pads to answer these questions. I'm doing it right here live as I do this recording. So you can see how long it takes for students with an iClicker 2 remote to input a short answer response. Okay, and you can see I have one answer. Now, normally your students will not be trying to lead a training at the same time that they are answering your questions, so they may have an easier time of it than I just did. Now I just click on results, and I can see how my students answered. Yes, the correct answer is active. All I have to do is touch and click that response to indicate to all of my students what the correct answer is. You can also ask your students questions that require a numeric response if you're using the iClicker 2 remotes. Just change the answer type to numeric, and then you'll press the start button so your students can rate their understanding. Click the stop button, and again you can click results. Okay, 8 is pretty good. Imagine asking a question like this after explaining a concept that has historically challenged your students. Asking questions that require self-reflection and self-evaluation help our students have a growth mindset, which is essential to higher level learning. Each time you run a poll, you have the option to use the anonymous polling feature exclusive to iClicker Classic. Normally, when you ask a polling question, you have the ability to extract the individual session data to see which students answered which question and how. This can be really valuable information for you as an instructor. For example, on the last question, if I had someone rate themselves at 0, I would want to find out who that was so I could offer some additional resources and support. However, there are times where we want to encourage our students to be completely honest in a discreet and thoughtful way. In these cases, we can use anonymous polling. Answers are not associated with a student name or ID. Rather, the gradebook results for each student shows an X instead of the actual response for that question. So here's an example of the type of question that you might want to have your students answer without the fear of you finding out that they never drink water. All I need to do is click the settings icon here and then click Anonymous Polling. So now you can see it's set to AP mode. I need to change my question type because this is a multiple choice question, not a numeric, and then I just click the start button. Then I click on the results. In anonymous polling, iClicker Classic captures the cumulative results so you can know how many students voted for each answer. But you can't see who answered which way, no matter how badly you might want to find out which of your students is drinking no water or a ton of water. Participation points may be assigned for these questions. I can't indicate one answer is correct and other answers are incorrect, as that would reveal how your students voted if you looked in the gradebook. The last iClicker Classic function I want to demo for you is Self-Paced Polling. With this type of poll, you distribute a sheet of up to 99 questions, and your students use their iClicker remotes to answer, completing the exercise at their own pace. This is an easy way to do a low-stakes quiz, answer questions during a lab session, or complete a course evaluation. I have a very small self-paced poll here to demonstrate. Self-paced polling works with the iClicker 2 remote. At this time, self-paced polling does not work with mobile devices in classes where iClicker Reef is enabled, but it may in future updates. If self-paced assessments are especially important to you, iClicker Cloud allows you to administer multiple choice quizzes for students using both remotes and mobile devices. To start a self-paced poll, I need to close my floating toolbar first. This brings up the full iClicker Classic software menu. From the top of the menu, click Self-Paced Polling, then click Start Self-Paced Session. This brings up the Self-Paced Polling Settings window. Under Polling Settings, choose how long the self-paced polling session should remain open. Select No Time Limit if you want to stop the session manually. I don't have an answer key for this quiz, so I'll select I do not have an answer key, and put in the number of questions here. If you do have an answer key, you can click here and input it or upload it. But for shorter assessments, we can grade self-paced polling questions like we grade other polling questions. Now all I need to do is click this Start Polling button. Now my self-paced polling session is live, and my students can use their remotes to go through the individual questions on the quiz at their own pace and in their own order. And now I can see how long the quiz has been open, and I can also see how many students have responded. When I'm satisfied with my number of responders, I'll just click Stop. It asks you to confirm that you're ready to actually stop the session. Yes. Now in order to grade that quiz, I'm going to open my gradebook. Here I can get a vision of all the polls that I've run in my class. And here I can also view and grade my self-paced polling session. So here when I asked when iClicker Classic requires an internet connection, the answer is D. Here where I asked what types of questions can't you ask with iClicker Classic, that answer is C, long answer. And with question number 3 where I asked how many questions can you ask in a self-paced poll, the answer is D, 99. Now my quiz has been graded. I can click Summary here to get information about my quiz. Click Done. I can click Scoring here if I want to change how the points are being shared out. So here's my gradebook where I can get an overview of what's going on with my students. Here you can see your students' grades, and this is also where you can export your students' grades either as an Excel file or in one of the popular LMS file types. Once you've downloaded your grades from the gradebook, you can easily upload them into your LMS's gradebook. You can also manually download data from the gradebook and combine it with an Excel gradebook if that's how you like to keep your grades. Here you can also go back to polling sessions you've had and modify or grade any polling questions you may have missed. Remember the question I didn't grade before? Let's go back and assign it a grade. Here you can easily see what questions still need to be graded. When you're satisfied with your grading, just X out and you'll go back to that gradebook screen. We've covered a lot today, and I hope you're feeling confident about using iClicker Classic in your classroom. Now I'm going to show you some of the settings instructors are most interested in, though I find it is often something instructors aren't ready to think about until they're setting up their courses and they're sitting in front of their LMS and their lesson plans. I'll go over some of the most essential settings and explain them, but I also want you to know that at iClicker.com you can click on Support, and you'll find a number of guides that will help you with all sorts of different things, like setting up your class, helping students register their remotes properly, and taking care of your gradebook with your LMS. You can access the settings of your course by clicking the settings cog here. If I go back to the main menu, I can also access my settings here. When you first open the settings, you'll be here under the General tab. Here you can change details about your course, and you can register your Blue Instructor remote if you wish. Here you can also change the sub-frequency code of your base. The default frequency channel for both the base and the student remote is AA. If you are the only instructor using iClicker, you should not modify this frequency. However, if someone else is using iClicker in close proximity, one of you must use a different channel. iClicker actually checks for base stations in close proximity that are using the same frequency as your setting. If a base nearby uses the same frequency, the program prompts you to change your frequency. If you find yourself in this situation, we recommend changing the frequency code to something else for the entire term. When the frequency is not AA, you must instruct students to change the frequency code on their clickers at the beginning of each class. You can click under Show Frequency Alert Message here, and you can choose to have a message sent to your students' remotes every time you start a session to change the frequency of their remotes. The Registration tab gives you another chance to register your iClicker Classic software, which is optional, but registering makes it so we can more effectively assist you with troubleshooting, support, and communication. The Mobile tab is where you can enable iClicker Reef if you want to allow your students to use mobile devices in your classroom. Under the Gradebook tab, you can indicate what kind of LMS your campus uses if you download your roster from a learning management system. When it comes to getting your LMS and iClicker gradebooks to work together, I really want to urge you to reference our support site when you're sitting down at your own computer and have your LMS open along with the iClicker software. We have highly detailed step-by-step guides for most LMS systems and guides for instructors who aren't using an LMS at all. Just go to iClicker.com and click Support. The next tab is for roll call settings. This modifies the way that students' names appear on the roll call window for in-class remote registration. This is a way you can have your students register their iClicker remotes in class. The toolbar setting allows you to customize the session toolbar and set the polling timer to count up or count down. The default is to have the timer count up, with you manually stopping the timer. But you can decide you want a set amount of time for each polling question. If so, you can set that here, and when the timer counts down to 0, the poll will stop automatically. This can be helpful if you have a group of students who are taking more time than they really need during polling sessions to answer questions. If you find your students are answering questions quicker than the window that you've set, don't worry, you're still able to manually close the timer. The Scoring tab is where you can make decisions about how your students will earn points when they participate in polls. It's a best practice to keep polling a low-stakes section of your course. This is in keeping with iClicker as a classroom tool designed to improve engagement. It also disincentivizes cheating. Keeping polling points between 5 and 10% of your total points incentivizes students to participate in polls and keeps students from, say, passing their remote to another student when they don't come to class. You have a lot of options here. You can make it so that students earn points for just participating, just for right answers, or somewhere in between. The best combination is to incentivize both participation and correct answers. When we only give points for correct answers, our very high-achieving and low-achieving students can be easily discouraged when they give an incorrect answer. The Results tab gives you options regarding how your results look when you pull them up for your class. This can be especially helpful to modify if you have a colorblind student, and it's just fun to play with. We like to offer a lot of flexibility when it comes to iClicker, and this is just another aspect of that. In this last tab, you have options for your base display. If you're an instructor who likes to move all over the classroom and hates being stuck behind a podium, you can use your iClicker base to display information to you that makes it easy to see what's going on with your poll without having to go behind the podium. I know this discussion of settings can be a little overwhelming and hard to apply until you're sitting down with your computer and all of your favorite tools. We completely understand. As you ease into using iClicker, I want to point you to the support we offer here, support that we believe is the best and most responsive in the industry. To visit our support site, first go to iClicker.com and then click Support. You can see we offer support for instructors, students, and administrators. One of the ways instructors can be apprehensive about bringing new tech into the classroom can be the prospect of acting as tech support for your students. With iClicker, we want to be where you send your students when they're having issues, and we will help them. Here, students can get help based on the type of device they're using in your class. And here you can see we break down our support for your students based on the type of issue they're having. If the self-serve support that we offer doesn't get them what they need, they can click Still Have Questions here, and they're able to either create a support case where they'll be served via email, or they can call one of these numbers here that's appropriate for them, and they will find a real live person on the other end of the phone who's ready and willing to help them. For instructors, we break down our support based on if you're using Classic or Cloud. If you're having an issue or you want to learn some more advanced techniques, you can do a search here at the top, or you can browse what we have down below. Here we have resources designed to help you when you're first getting started and need things like syllabus language. We offer detailed support when it comes to how iClicker works with your LMS. And we offer webinars, usually once a month, that highlight new and innovative ways you can use iClicker. Here is all our support contact information summed up for you. We really hope that you and your students take advantage of the support options we offer. Bringing new technology into the classroom is exciting, but can be stressful for some. Please don't hesitate to let us know if you or your students need assistance, using whatever avenue you find most helpful. Thank you for spending some of your valuable time with me today. Happy teaching!